The moment is here, you can stop your search. It's Comics by Perch.
Hey everybody, this is Perch. I do a lot of these videos and I say things like, it should be easy, or you could do this, or barely an inconvenience, not some other guy. But I do think a lot of these things are straightforward, but this is true about life. There's a lot of very obvious things that we all know, but we find ways to talk ourselves out of it. Like, hey, I've got a big presentation tomorrow and I probably shouldn't stay out with my friends until 2 a.m. drinking because I'll feel hungover and crappy. I'd definitely feel better if I just went home and got some sleep before the big presentation. But, I when am I going to get a chance to drink with friends? And so, I mean, we know a lot of the right things, but we find really good ways to convince ourselves out of them. And I think a lot of things like that are true with comics too. The big kind of situation I see crop up in comics is that a lot of people who work within them are kind of trapped by something of their own making, which is it just works this way. As kind of a blanket statement that allows people to make a bunch of decisions that, I don't know, maybe it worked that way once upon a time, but probably doesn't now. And again, this isn't isolated just to comics. I mean, I'm sure there are lots of people at Blockbuster who are like, video, people watching movies just works this way, as their company was going out of business. But because every now and then I get mails, not actually fairly regularly, from various people in comics at higher levels, trying to explain to me, like, I just need to explain to you why it's just this way. And it's always this, I'm always respectful. I'm like, you suck. But it's kind of like, I try and push on it a little bit. It's like, I understand that's kind of business as usual, but is there a different answer? Is there maybe a different way to tackle this? I mean, sure. It kind of is like the, Walt Simonson is, he doesn't sell. He's not marketable. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure he is. It's like, no, he's not. Plus, he's older. He doesn't want to work as much. It's like, okay, well, you kind of shifted the argument there. Don't put Walt on a monthly comic. I don't know. You should still ask him if he wants to do that, but maybe you don't put Walt on a monthly comic. So what would be good for Walt to do? So anyway, there's just little stuff like that. I had it with Byrne as well. Like, well, he's just too cranky. It's like, okay, I mean, sure, that's kind of obvious from some of the the clips that we saw back in the 90s, that he could be cranky, but is he still a good artist? Sure. Does the editorial department only work with pleasant, brilliant people who are filled with sunshine each and every day? I mean, based on, the Twitter feeds of some creators, I find that hard to believe. So, I mean, it's going to sound, maybe insensitive, low EQ, but deal with it. Right. I mean, that's kind of the job. You've got somebody who has a marketable skill who will sell a lot of books. They're paying the ass to work with. That's why you have somebody who's that interface to work with them. I mean, it would be nice if everybody was cheerful, but, a lot of things would be nice. Anyway, so this mail's asking about some of this. So I kind of spoiled the answer before getting to the mail. We'll try it anyway. Dear Perch Perchington, very fancy, always very fancy. I have 2 questions for you. Oh, we're doing a bonus. I have 2 questions for you. First off, did you see that Moana, the live action movie, has cast a white woman? Wait a minute, Moana? I think you mean Lilo and Stitch. The writer is confused here. Lilo and Stitch is doing a live version. Are they doing a Moana version? Maybe Moana is too. But anyway, okay, well, I'm going to assume you're talking Lilo and Stitch because you're saying Moana's younger sister, Lilo. So that was Lilo and Stitch. All right. Okay, back to this mail. Lilo's older sister has been cast as a white woman. Do you think that changes how people are going to start to talk about race swaps in movies? Okay, maybe that's an entire video to itself. But my short and quick answer to that is the movie animated? It's not. It's live action. Then it's a bad idea. The end. I know that's not an absolute answer, but for a lot of these Disney live remakes, increasingly I'm at a point of, why are we doing a live remake? Like they come off like they don't come off good. They're bad. Like that's the problem. I mean, yeah, sure. I talked about how the whole Little Mermaid being cast as black was a dumb traversy, and all those pieces, that You can't just. But this is the problem with adapting animation, is that characters are intend to look a certain way. Frankly, superhero films have a little bit of this because when something is animated, you can make the costume and the armor look whenever you want, as crazy as you want. But when you adapt that to live action, you've then got to have the person move around in this stuff, and it doesn't always look good. So, I mean like your problem is in going live, in my opinion. So I guess Lilo's older sister, what's her name? Anyway, she's Hawaiian. They cast a Hawaiian woman. She's light skinned, and she's like part indigenous, part British or Irish or something. And so the opposite group is all pissed off. Oh, here we go, another white person in the movies. Like, you'd have to laugh at the hypocrisy of it, but that is a video for another day. Anyway, let's get to the second half of the mail. You give a lot of good suggestions on things to do in comics that seem really easy to implement. My question is, why don't they? You would think that after a while, people would just be tired of being frustrated and poor, and they'd want to at least try some of these things out to see if you're full of hot air or they might actually work. My belief is that they would actually work, and people would have a much easier time of it if they would just pick the easy path. But why do you think they do? Why do you think they avoid this? Thanks for listening, first off. And that's the end of the video. No, I think, why don't they take the easy path? I think a combination of things, and I'm going to be, really empathetic toward people who are working in comics and publishers and everything. There's this new company out right now that just announced, I don't know if you, Distiller, and I need to talk about that soon, because that thing has, anyway, so much goofiness, by the way, in that entire thing. By the way, a lot of creators who are aggressively against NFTs are now all in this, it's Distillery. So we'll do that video. But you look at a lot of these efforts, both big companies and small companies, and you do see people making the same choices over and over and over again. So why do they do that? Well, the short answer is it's what they know. And, to disrupt something, to come in and say, we're going to do it different. We're going to actually try, not as a stunt. Bad Idea does a lot of stunts. That's not really doing it different. Comics have done stunts for a long time, but truly doing things different. And one tiny little indication. It's like the print and digital, same day digital into the app. If you talk about that to a lot of people in comics, like, well, we could never do it because the shops would completely, come unglued, and they'd be angry, and they would, we would be screwing them. We can't do that. Well, the shops are going to have to get over that. I mean, bluntly, I'm saying this as a guy who ran a shop. I mean, evolution does happen. You can't just keep it in the bottle and expect nothing is going to change. And so it becomes an excuse, and not a very viable one, or not even one that makes sense. Look, if you're Marvel, and I've heard people from Marvel had said this to me, well, the comic shops will never go for it. Bitch, you're Marvel. I mean, quite bluntly, what are the comic shops going to do? Do you honestly think that the direct market's going to be like, oh, you're doing this with digital? We swore we have a blood oath against you now, or the other off. Anyway, we will never carry your comics again. Look, Marvel, as one of the leaders in this industry, kind of has a responsibility to innovate. Between them and DC, like comic shops are not going to stop carrying these comics. They're just not. Over the last 5 years, I've heard there's shop owners who've gone on live streams and bragged about I'm no longer carrying Marvel or DC books because I'm tired of the woke. Bullshit. I'm sorry. That's bullshit. You did not stop carrying Marvel and DC comics. If you stop carrying new comics completely, you didn't go to your back issues and throw the Marvel and DC books out. And if you stop carrying new issues, you sure as hell aren't going to, carry like Aftershock and Boom and ignore Marvel and DC. I mean, that's like, just come on. So when I hear somebody from Marvel say this, like, oh, we're held hostage, but no, you're not. You're not. But I do believe to some extent that you believe that, meaning, the people who work in these companies. When you do business, a very specific way for a long time, it just becomes the way. And breaking out of that is scary and it's hard, and it's a risk. And quite frankly, the other thing you see is when industries do not have a lot of upward momentum, when they don't have a big, they're profitable, but they're not spitting out billions of dollars of profit. And if you look at Marvel and DC, they both have corporate owners that more or less, it's kind of the don't make waves, don't radically try and change your business, or you're going to get fired. And in comics, I think you see a lot of people who are able to get hired and rehired for doing terrible things. I mean, somehow, Bob Harris pisses off, tons of creators, is partially responsible for Image getting started in a bad way for him. And, but he still gets jobs. He wanders over to DC. He announced a new job for him at a company a couple weeks ago. If you just do it the way it's always been done, even if you're not successful, even if, things don't really, even if people dislike you for what you do, if you could point back to, but I'm doing it the way we always have done it, you'll be fine. People put up with it and you'll get rehired and hired. However, if you go out there and go, you know what, I'm going to change the size of comics to a Tankobon style. I'm going to try it. I'm going to do something radically different. Oh no, the direct market will hate that. I don't care. I think it's what we have to do to survive and evolve. If you start doing those kinds of decisions and you take a risk and it fails, you're done. They won't have you back. And so, and this is true, by the way, we have tons and tons of industries, smaller industries. It is hard to disrupt. It's why companies like McKinsey and, Accenture and all these other guys come in and like, we're going to help transform your business. And their ideas are often common sense. Like anyone would come up with these ideas, but companies still give them millions of dollars to help. Why? Because, if it goes bad, you blame McKinsey. You're like, all right. But McKinsey knows that their common sense advice usually works. And so they take that gamble. Like, yeah, we'll be willing to take the hit if it goes wrong. Sure, we'll do it. We'll go off to the next company. Because the reality is, if you structure yourself that way, you're right way out more often than you're wrong. And you can have a pretty profitable business. McKinsey, it turns out those guys are paid really, really well. A partner, and they're clearing $1 million easy a year. That's the gig. But it's hard. So why don't these people try these? Why have they tried more of these things? Because it's it's risky. And because when you're in, it's kind of like other videos I've done recently. When you're in an echo chamber, you start to believe the hype. You're just like, well, yeah, this is the way it always been. This always has been. I can't. There's surely not a different way. I'm this is what we got. It's just it's easy to find yourself there, and so they do. The push though is if you truly want to be brilliant, and I know a lot of people in comics dream of being, being kind of the superstar. You can't be a superstar without taking risks. It's very, very hard to do. You have to try. So there you go. There's my answer. And keep Disney animated movies animated. That's what I say. Thanks for listening.